I won't. So we try to set funds aside every year to be able to purchase equipment, or if nothing else, if I can get it from surplus, at least I would have the money then for the transportation of the item to Deer Park. I mentioned that I'm a contract manager, and I would say that probably one of the main reasons that we do this in Deer Park is because it is less expensive. It is. I am responsible for all the daily operations at the airport. I have part-time employees that help me with the mowing and the plowing, although I've done my share of it too. Looks like we're going to be doing some more plowing this week from what I hear. I'm responsible for planning, whether it's master planning, budget planning, any of those kinds of issues that come up, and project coordination from the local standpoint. I report to the mayor and to the city council. As I said, I provide all the labor. All of the people who work at the airport are my employees. The airport provides all the equipment, the supplies, the insurance, utilities, basically all those other expenses. And the insurance is a major issue. As a contractor, of course, I need to be covered. I need all of my employees covered. They're all covered by L&I, of course, but basic liability insurance is an issue, and we have been able to be included on our airport insurance policy, so I do not have to provide extra coverage for the insurance. And this is a tremendous savings, because if I had to cover so many of these other expenses, my contract for providing all this labor and so forth would be well beyond what the airport could afford and still stay self-sufficient. So we have to look at all the ways we can to, shall we say, share these expenses. The other thing about the costs here, if I were a city employee and part of a union and on a regular schedule, 8 to 5 or 10-hour days or whatever, then what happens on the weekends, which is some of the most busy days for aviation, or at night, I'm basically on call 24/7. So I can get calls from people needing fuel, or somebody calling to say the lights won't come on, or whatever it is. Well, as a contractor, my responsibility is customer service. And I will go out there, I will bend over backwards to make it work for folks. I really will. And whether it means being out there on a Sunday morning because they need fuel, or whether it means going out there in the evening because of gates stuck open, I will do that. And there's no overtime pay for that. So that's really one of the cost savings that having the contract management provides. And it probably helps that it's a labor of love in some ways for me too, but I certainly do not intend to make this something that my successor would not be able to support a family on. Revenues to the city. Typically we talk about the airport not costing the city anything, but it's quite the contrary, actually. The airport generates revenue to the city. There have been some years, I mentioned we sometimes have sold up to 80,000 gallons of avgas. That year, my retail sales of fuel were approximately $500,000. Aviation gasoline in the state of Washington is subject to sales tax. So any of you who have businesses in the area, that's not too shabby a business if you can generate $500,000 in taxable sales. So those revenues, those sales tax revenues, go to the city. Unfortunately, the airport doesn't necessarily get any credit for that. And I think in some ways that might be something that needs to really be looked at closely. Some of these tax revenues just kind of get lost in this ocean of tax revenues that come into the city. So sales tax is one. Property tax. Everyone who has a hangar at the airport pays property tax, personal property tax. We also pay leasehold tax because when we can't buy the property, we get to pay leasehold tax, which is almost 13% in the state of Washington. Part of that comes back to the city, part comes back to the county. It's a rather strange formula for distributing that, but there is some revenue generated from leasehold taxes. Any building that goes on at the airport generates building permit fees and utility hookup fees. And And then there's the trickle-down effect of the over 100 aircraft owners that probably wouldn't have any specific reason to come to Deer Park if it were not for the airport being there, their aircraft. And then they go in and have lunch, and they buy parts at Napa, and they go for groceries while they're there, and they buy gasoline. And this has been, it's a difficult one to quantify. You know, a few years ago, the Aviation Division did an economic impact study and said that the Deer Park Airport had approximately a $4 million impact on the community. I thought that seemed high, but I thought, my goodness, you know, even if it's only half that, that's still a significant impact. So there is this rather more difficult quantity to be able to, or quantity of dollars going into the community that it's hard to quantify. Okay, that's all the slides that I have. I think you wanted to wait for questions until later on. Thank you very much.